Hi, this is CK at CK Education, and today I want to talk about something specific to my business and what I do. I'm in the college prep business. I teach students and I help them with SAT prep, college essays, college applications, financial aid, graduate school essays, and things like that. I also give a lot of career advice and money and personal finance advice, parenting advice, all kinds of things in my YouTube channel. But today I want to talk specifically about SAT prep. And what I want to talk about is why most SAT prep systems don't work. And now, why do I even say this in the first place? I say this because this is about the 11th or 12th year that I'm doing this. Before this, if you watch my other videos, you know that I was an engineer. I've had a lot of other positions and I've worked in a lot of different other organizations and companies and government agencies and so forth. So I have a varied career background. And this I've been doing full time since about 2009. And I've taught nearly 1,000 students. I've taught every single one of them one-to-one. And I have over 20,000 hours of teaching students one-to-one. And what I've learned over the years, especially in the early years, but even to this day, is that my students that I've taught have gone through every type of SAT prep system that you've heard of. Okay, whether it's kids have studied using Khan Academy, or people get one of the prep books. They get College Board or Kaplan or McGraw-Hill or Barron's or Peterson's or Gruber's or SparkNotes or College Board. It doesn't matter. Princeton Review. There's so many books out there, and people use these prep books. People have gone to different academies. People have gone through different tutors at different places. They've done it in person. They've done it in groups. They've done summer intensive programs. They've done all kinds of programs, whether they're local or national or global online. I've had students who've done every kind of SAT prep program, and I've heard countless times, because I always ask people when they come to me, well, why didn't you just finish at that place that you were at? And how long were you there for? Oh, I was there for 6 months, or I was there for a year and a half, or I was there for a year, or I was there doing 5 hours a day in the summers for a month, and it was an intensive program. And I always ask them two things. First of all, how did you hear about me? And secondly, why didn't you just continue doing the program and finish it off over there? And the answer is always the same. The answer to the first question, how did you hear about me, is, well, I heard from so-and-so, and is usually word of mouth. Secondly, the question is, why didn't you just, continue over there? And the answer to that question is always the same, which is, didn't work. I said, what do you mean it didn't work? Well, I went there and I learned all these things and I took all these practice tests. And when I took the real test, or when I took, a different practice test, my score is always the same. And so I get this kind of answer all the time, all the time. I cannot count how many times I got this kind of answer. And even up until very, very recently, I've had students who've done this. Like just past year, I have especially these two students of mine. They went to two different programs locally here, and they were there for like a year and a half. Two different programs for a year and a half, just doing SAT prep, and compared to where they started and compared to a real test that they actually took in a testing center, they paid and took the real test, they got something like a 50-point increase, which is nothing, which is like, I joke around and tell students, a 50-point, did I say percent? 50-point increase. 50-point increase is nothing. That's like getting a good night's sleep and getting a 50-point increase. You can get just a good night's sleep and get that. So I took these two students on, and so they got about a 160-point increase in about 2 or 3 months. And this was, now, it wasn't the typical 2 or 3 months. They came very late. They were very late in the program because they were done with their 11th grade year, and it was like the summer after their 11th grade year. They have very, very, very little time. So I don't usually do this, but I gave them a lot of, some extra classes during the week. I usually meet with my students once a week, but I had to give them extra time, and I did what I could in the time that I could make to help these kids. And so, but they saw a significant increase in a short period of time. Remember, compared to year and a half in two different places, getting like a 50-point increase, which is almost nothing, compared to getting like a 160-point increase in a matter of months. And then they took the test and they went to college and they're happy and they did that. So, but this is just one of many, 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 many stories that I can talk about. Now, so the question is, why doesn't most SAT prep work? Why doesn't it work? I think the answer is very simple. When I started this back in 2009, before I started it, I did a lot of research. I didn't know anything about it. I never took the SAT. I never taught the SAT. I didn't know anything about the SAT. I was not confident that I could do well in the SAT or even teach it. I had zero experience teaching it, taking it, never took it, because when I went to college, I didn't have to take it. We took something else called the WPCT. So I had zero experience. I would be the least likely person that you could expect to teach this thing. And I was not intent on teaching it. That's not what my plans were. I mean, I taught just essay writing and writing essays and things like that, but I didn't teach the SAT math, reading, grammar. I didn't teach any of that. This really came about because I got a lot of demand and a lot of requests from parents, and I always, probably for about a year and a half, I refused those requests. I'm sorry, I don't teach it, I don't teach it, I don't teach it, because I didn't teach it, and I had no confidence that I could teach it. But one day I decided that maybe I should just look into teaching it. And I thought, as everyone else does, I just thought I'll just get a College Board book and I'll just study all of the problems in the College Board book and all the different tests, and I'll just memorize all the answers and I'll just get to know all of them, and then I'll just explain all the problems, because all the people that I talked to who did SAT prep did it that way. I mean, they may have used a different book. Some use College Board, some use, Princeton or Kaplan or Gruber's or Peterson's or McGraw, whatever, but they're using a prep book. And most people I saw were using College Board because it was a, quote, official guide of the SAT, official study guide. So it made sense to me. I mean, they're the official study guide, so of course I'll use the official one, not the unofficial ones, okay? And I'll teach it. That's what I thought. But before I even started turning one page and looking into that, before I did that, I decided, you know what, that's what everybody does, but let me just make sure that works. So I started talking to people about what they did and how they taught from the book, and I asked them, does that work? Does it raise scores? And I was surprised to learn that the vast majority of teachers that I talked to who taught SAT from books couldn't tell me that if what they taught and if what they did raised their students' scores. And at first I thought they were joking. I said, surely you must know. I mean, that doesn't make sense that you don't know. But they really didn't know. And they would give me answers like, well, I'm sure it works. I think it works. I mean, it has to work. I mean, why wouldn't it work? Things like this. But there was no clear answer like, it works. I never got that. I also met people who taught a lot of different things, like vocab words and Latin and Greek roots. And, I had teachers, telling students to read a lot of articles and magazines and newspapers and on and on and on, and different books and things like that. And I thought, wow, how am I going to ever do that? How am I going to read all that and get to know all these things so I can teach students? It was overwhelming to me. So I continued my research, and I approached it just like I approach all of my engineering projects in my engineering career. I didn't know anything about it, but I learned it. I researched it. I observed it. I documented it. I organized it, I improved it, I created a system, and I tested it, and I measured it, and I improved it, and I kept that process. And that was the same process I used to set up and create what I now call the CK SAT prep system. And so it's very different because it's not just studying from a book, which basically everybody else does. And so why doesn't just studying from a prep book work? If you've tried studying from a book and you did really well in the practices in the book, but when you took the real test, you're like, man, that was so much harder, and I didn't get nearly the score that I got on these practice tests, you know exactly what I'm talking about, okay? And if you've experienced that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I've heard this hundreds of times. So why doesn't that work? I didn't know at first either. And the more and more I looked into it, and I've been doing this for many years now I do know. But why doesn't that work? Because just like everything else, and if you watch a lot of my other videos, I always talk about mindset. Everybody focuses on behavior and results. But understand that behavior and results come from a certain mindset, a certain way of thinking. It's no different with the SAT. If you think in mode A, okay, and you take the test and you get certain results based on mode A thinking, then you're going to get those kinds of results, and you're going to think through the problems that way, and that's the way you're always going to do it. But if you can change the way you think about the problem or the test or how to analyze it or how to set it up and what to look for, and let's say we replace mode A thinking with mode B thinking. Now you're thinking differently. Now you're looking at it differently. Now you're analyzing the problems differently. Now you are setting up the math problems differently. Now you know what to look for in the writing section. Now you know what kind of things to look for in the reading section. Now you know which problems are wrong in the reading section and why. Now you don't have to say, man, I'm always between two problems in the reading section like B or C, and I always pick the wrong one. Now you know why one of them is wrong. In the past, you didn't see that because you were in mode A thinking. So let's say we replace that mode A with mode B thinking. Now you're thinking of it differently. You're approaching the test in an entirely different way. You're playing a different game. And with that new mode of thinking, you take the test, you get results you've never gotten before because you're thinking about it differently. Everything is mindset. Everything is the way you think. Everything is the process, a mind process of how you process things in your mind. So if we can change that, then the results will change. And that is exactly what taking a practice test from a book does not do. You're just thinking the same way you've always thought. The way you do it at school is the way you do it on the SAT. And all the teachers that teach from the book, pretty much all of them, they don't change you. They don't make you change your mind about things. They just try different tests and different problems. Oh, we're done with the College Board one. Let's go get a different book. Let's get a Barron's book and try those problems. We're done with that. Let's get a Princeton book and try those. Let's get a Kaplan book. Let's get a McGraw-Hill book. Let's get a Gruber's book or Peterson's book or a Spartano's book. It doesn't matter how many books and how many problems you go through. You're still thinking about it in mode A thinking. So you're going to get pretty much the same results. So when you go take the real test, you're surprised. I can't believe how hard it was. I can't believe I didn't get the problems. I can't believe how low of a score I got. Because you're thinking the same way. So you're doing a lot of things, you're solving a lot of problems, you're spending a lot of time, but you're not really achieving anything, you're not really getting anywhere. This is what I call activity without achievement. So it's not how many tests you've taken, how many hours you studied, or how many problems you solved. It is how much of your mind did you change. Now, here's the thing. It's possible to change your mind, but it's possible to change your mind in the wrong way. It is possible to think in a worse way than you did before. So I always tell my students, my job is to teach you the right way to think, and the right way to analyze, the right methods. Your job is to repeat those and practice those and master them. It takes two things. You got to learn the right, if you want progress, if you want improvement in anything, going from here to here in anything, you have to learn the right methods, and you have to master those methods. Usually the right methods are given from an outside source. Usually the person trying to improve doesn't have the right methods at his or her disposal. So they got to go learn that from a book, from a mentor, from a person, from a YouTube video, whatever. They have to go learn that. So my job is to teach you the right methods. Your job as a student is to master and practice and repeat them until that becomes second nature. And if you get those two things, you will see improvement, period. Okay? So that is why, that's the difference between what I do and pretty much all the SAT prep systems and programs out there. You will spend a lot of time and a lot of energy solving a lot of problems that will not make a big impact on your results. If you want results, you have to change the way you think. You have to change the way that you process these problems and the way you look at it. You have to know what to look for. And those are the things that I teach. So it's a very different method, a very different style. I think it can only be taught effectively one-on-one. That's why for over 11 years, I've been doing it just one-on-one. And I only meet with my students 1.5 hours a week, only 4 times a month. That's only 6 hours a month. And people ask me all the time, is that enough time? I mean, is that, well, I've taught over 20,000 hours. I have a year-long waiting list, and my students get better results than I say any other system. And the reason I say that is not out of arrogance. I'm not saying it from that position. I am only saying that because I've had hundreds of students who have done all the other different things and not gotten results. And then they come to me as a last resort, and I've gotten breakthrough results. That's why I say that. It's just based on results and experience. I'm not saying this out of arrogance or out of competitiveness or ego. Okay, I'm just saying this as a matter of fact. And so I wanted to explain to you clearly why a lot of the SAT prep programs do not work and what does work. So if you've experienced that, if you've experienced what I'm talking about, I would say I'd love to hear your story, but I've heard that already 100 times, hundreds of times. If you're interested in becoming one of my students, the best thing is to go to my website, ckeducation.org, and to fill out the SAT prep application form. When I get that, I will contact you personally, and then we can talk about if the possibilities of becoming one of my students. I can't always take everyone because I just don't have time in my schedule to do that. But I would love to hear from you if you're interested. And when you fill that form out, in the bottom of the form, there's a comments section. And in the comment section, I'd like you to put in there why you think you would be a good fit as one of my students. Now, if you're a student, you can write that yourself. If you're a parent filling it out for your child, you can put in there why you think your child would be a good fit as one of my students. But I'd love to hear from you. Hope that helps. And thanks again for watching my video. And I encourage you to watch a lot of the other videos on my channel that deal with not just SAT prep, but college admissions and career advice, parenting advice, mindset, personal finance, and money. I talk about a lot of things that I've given advice to nearly 1,000 students and parents in the last over a decade. And so I share all that with you guys for free. So I hope you take advantage of it. But again, thanks for watching this video. And until my next video, please stay well.